Hello, everybody, and thanks for tuning in to our live coverage here, day 6 of CMA Industry Week, as we're spotlighting Gemsen distribution all day. Let's go ahead and bring Mr. Singh back from Gemsen.
Ben, nice to see you again. It's been a while.
I like your energy level. You're keeping up with me. It's good. Let's see if I can't break you by the end of the day.
It's Red Bull and vodka.
Oh, is that what? Okay. Man, Gemsen's got a lot of cool brands, a lot of premium brands, and this is what I consider another heritage brand in car audio, because I remember back in the day, good old Epicenter, save the day. AudioControl, my friend, AudioControl.
100%. You know, they used to launch a lot of woofers back in the day with those Epicenters.
Sure did.
Redline, that sort of stuff. You know, you're 100% right. We've got, we're blessed to have some legacy brands with, the guys that really pioneered the industry, and AudioControl is one of them, definitely. You know, they were well known back in the day for their signal processors, like you said, Epicenter. Crossovers, 6XSs, 2XSs, EQSs, that sort of stuff. But in the last few years, AudioControl has really done a good job and attacked the OEM integration market by coming up with amplifiers that are ready for pretty much every application. And OEM integration, can be scary for a lot of dealers. One of the challenges that we see a lot of times is, when you hear DSP or OEM integration, some people are like, whoa, I don't have time for that. Customers aren't going to pay me 4 or 5 hours, that sort of thing. And they're doing a lot of old school things, which ultimately ends up costing them a lot more time and a lot more money, and sometimes frustrations with the customers because you're not selling them what they need. And then you have to have that awkward phone call with them after, say, oh, by the way, to finish your job, we're going to need this product, this product, this product. Yeah. So what we wanted to do is, have the guys from AudioControl show how easy OEM integration can be with as little as one product. So we're super excited to have Matthew Palumbo from AudioControl out in
Washington.
Washington. Thank you very much. There, I forgot the Red Bull there. So let's bring him in.
All right, Matthew Palumbo, of course, no stranger to CMA. Welcome back, Matt.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
So that was a nice intro from Dave, and I was trying to connect the dots that AudioControl obviously has been around a long time. Came up with some great solutions for OEM integration, continued on with the signal processing route by integrating some of that technology into amplifiers, right? And that's kind of leading us to what we're going to talk about today. So why don't you set us up a little bit, Matt, about what's happening, what we're going to be discussing.
Sure. Yeah. So today, it's all about OEM integration made easy. And what does that entail? What does that really mean? What do we offer to make OEM integration easier for the average dealer? Some dealers are more well-versed in this than others. Some of them do integration every day and it's their usual thing. And for others, they're still relying on aftermarket head units because they really aren't great at integrating. To some of them, OEM integration means high to low converters, and that's it. And so that's really what we're going to talk about is how we can make OEM integration easier, the products from AudioControl that can make that happen. And like Dave kind of alluded to a little bit, how we have even some single box, if you want to call them that, single box solutions where you can put in one product, make a car sound great, and just put in one piece of gear.
Hey, if you're a dealer listening in and, OEM integration is kind of being like a gray zone for you, and like Matthew, if you're still doing, high-low converters or turning down jobs because you don't have a radio that fits.
Popping speakers with batteries.
I think it's time to pay attention. I really like where we're going with this, and I'm excited to see what kind of solution that you can present today. Did you have a presentation, Matt, for us today?
Yes, I do. You want me to start sharing that?
Yeah, let's get into that. And Dave, while we're doing that, sorry, let me just get that for Matt.
Absolutely.
Here we go, Matt. Let's full screen that, Matt, so we can get a nice good visual. Yep. Okay, we'll let Matt go, and then we'll take some notes as usual, and we'll circle back or interject when there's an opportunity.
Get this. There we go. That should look a little bit better. Cool. So let's talk about OEM integration and how to make that easy. So we're going to talk about some of the technologies that we have and some of the features that we have built into lots of our products, as well as some specific products that are going to make this really kind of all come together for you. So let's get right into it. And one of the things that we're going to talk about first is just why AudioControl? If you have other choices out there from other manufacturers, why choose us? Why use AudioControl products? Ben and Dave both alluded to the fact that we've been around for a little while, over 43 years this year. So AudioControl is certainly what some people call a legacy brand. And we, because of that, have the experience with OEM integration, because we're one of the vendors that kind of created that category to be able to offer some really cool things. And one of those is our input flexibility. And when I talk about input flexibility, what I really mean is, our products will work with just about anything. And if I was, say, a younger sales guy or a green sales guy in a store, and I just didn't quite know the ins and outs of all the different cars, you'd be pretty safe always suggesting an AudioControl product, because it really doesn't matter what that vehicle is equipped with. And that's what I mean when I say, input flexibility. It doesn't matter if it's factory or aftermarket or amplified or non-amplified, base model, premium sound. It doesn't matter. Our products can work with all of those things, and really with no extra parts. And we'll dive more into that as we get into things here. Some of the other things that, maybe lean you towards us is we have some incredible support at AudioControl before and after the install, or before and after the sale. We have a great tech support team here in Washington State. They're not overseas or in another, area or something where you have to deal with that stuff. Everybody's right here in-house, and you get a real person when you call us. You don't get a phone tree. You don't have to sit on hold forever. You're going to get a real human being. Along with that support comes the warranty. We have a 5-year warranty across the board on all of our products when they're installed by a authorized dealer. So again, for you dealers out there watching this too, that's an awesome selling point for you to talk to your clients about is, hey, this is great product, but if something does ever happen, these guys are going to back us up. In turn, we can back you up. So that's really what it's all about, is just being able to take care of people. We want everybody to have a great experience. And part of that experience is that we are a US company. We're based, like I said, here in Washington State. We design and engineer all of our own products here in the greater Seattle area. And even a lot of the manufacturing and assembly and testing is all handled in-house. I don't want to mislead anybody and say that every single product is assembled from scratch here, but we do as much as we possibly can in-house. And we'll dip into a little bit more of that stuff later too. One of the other things that kind of goes along with that is ease of install. All of our products, really, we've tried to design, because we are designing them in-house, to be really simple to install. And when we talk about amplifiers, this is one of my favorite things. We only do RMS power. We don't do peak power ratings. We don't have model numbers that are a representation of peak power. We don't put it in the manual or in the website or on the box. If an amplifier says 800 watts, it's really 800 watts. And with us, it's probably more than that, because we tend to underrate our products a little bit. So that's just a few little bullet points on, if you've got choices between brands A, B, and C and AudioControl, these are some things to keep in mind when you're kind of shopping around for who you're going to use. So one of the things I want to talk about first is our LC series of amplifiers. And I call these integration amplifiers, because there's a lot of key features built into these that really are unmatched in the industry. Nobody else really has what these amplifiers have. And I think a lot of dealers, unfortunately, sometimes look at these amps and just go, oh, great, it's an 800 watt 4-channel, that's cool, and they kind of move on. But there's so much more to it than just that. And we're gonna kind of, dig into some of those things. So some of the things that make the LC series special in general is our input section. And I brought this up earlier. The input section on these is incredibly unique. And what I mean by that, there are some features in these amplifiers that, like I said, nobody else really has. And one of those is the high level input section. So down at the bottom of the screen, actually, you'll see the speaker level inputs. And this is on, for an example, a 6-channel amplifier. And there's 8 channels of high level input. If you look at our 4-channel amplifier, there's 6 channels of high-level input. If you look at our 5-channel amplifier, there's 8 channels of high-level input. So what do you need all those inputs for? Why do we have all those inputs on a amplifier like that? It's really all about flexibility and summing. So if you need to do signal summing, these amplifiers can handle it internally, and you'll see a better description of what I mean by that in a moment. The other thing that's built into our amps is AccuBase. AccuBase is a really cool feature. It's a neat technology, and this is not to be confused with the Epicenter. For those of you out there that aren't as familiar with AudioControl and what our proprietary technologies are, this is a common misconception where guys see an amplifier and they see AccuBase and they go, oh, cool, it's got an Epicenter in it. They are not the same thing. AccuBase is made for compensating for bass roll-off. Epicenter puts bass back into the signal path where there was none. So if you're listening to old recordings or certain types of music that don't have a lot of bass, or even a vehicle that just has a permanent high pass filter, like a lot of newer Range Rovers and Hondas, the Epicenter can put that bass back in. AccuBass, on the other hand, is for those vehicles, and most of you have probably experienced this, where as you turn up the volume, the car turns down the bass, or it plateaus the bass at a certain volume number. That's what AccuBass solves. So AccuBass is built into a lot of our products. It's a feature or technology. One of the other neat things that's in here. Oh, go ahead.
No, AccuBass is so important. I think we should make that a keyword for today's session. So AccuBass, remember, mark that down. Sorry, Matt.
I like it. No, that's a good point. One of the other things on your screen, circled in purple right now, you'll see something that says bus sum. And this is one of those features that, as someone that used to be an installer, I love this. Nothing drives me crazier than Y adapters, okay? I hate Y adapters, I really do. And they drive me crazy when I see them in an install. And that's something that our products, you very rarely, if ever, would have to use, is Y adapters. Because you can feed in just 2 channels of signal into any of these amplifiers, 4-channel, 5-channel, 6-channel, doesn't matter. And they can actually still produce sound out of all of the output channels if that's how you want to set it up. So if you are in one of those vehicles where the only good audio is the rear speakers and their full range, that's okay. Bring in those 2 channels of audio and we can still populate all 6 channels of output, or however many channels that amp has. Now, I mentioned earlier, too, that we have internal signal summing with a lot of these amplifiers. Now, that's great, being able to bring in a high, mid, and low signal and sum them all together to get full range. But what about adding an additional amplifier? What about adding on a sub-amp or something else? These amplifiers also have a line output. Now, a lot of guys will look at that and say, well, great, lots of amps have a pass-through. This is not a pass-through. This is not the same thing as just an RCA pass-through. This is a line out, a true line out. So although you have, high to low adaptation or conversion, basically, I should say, inside the amplifier, not only does it do it for the signals that are being amplified inside there, it also allows you to pass that summed signal out to a sub-amp or whatever other amplifier you're adding on. So when you think about the upgradability or the upgrade path, I call it, where those customers, let's face it, they get bitten by the car audio bug, they're going to want to come back and upgrade. These amps provide a great way to do that later on down the road. Speaking of input and flexibility and all that, I mentioned earlier that you can use our products with any vehicle, right? Amplified, non-amplified, doesn't matter. And here's what I really mean by that. That's more than just having high-level inputs and low-level inputs. That's what they'll handle. And this is where it really gets kind of tricky. And that is our input section on these amplifiers, and all of our amplifiers, by the way, will accept up to 40 volts of high-level input. 40 volts of high-level input essentially equates to about 400 watts. What does that really mean? It means that you can use these with any car on the road, because there's not a single vehicle out there today that has 400 watts per channel in a factory sound system. So even if it is a BMW with a factory amplifier, you can grab that signal from the outputs of that factory amp, feed it straight into our products, and they can deal with that signal and then make it sound better down the road. So that's something to kind of keep in mind when you're looking at any of these amplifiers. Go ahead.
What you're saying, Matt, is I can't blow this thing up by plugging into any speaker wire.
Correct. You can feed anything in there you want. If it has a factory sub and you want to grab those factory sub wires and feed them in for signal, you can do that.
It makes me feel more comfortable from an installer standpoint that won't happen.
100%. And here's the thing to take into consideration. Like, you don't have to buy that extra external box. Sometimes some amplifiers will take a certain level of high level input, but then you got to buy an extra LOC, which adds, for a good quality one, about $100 or so. I think we've all seen those LOCs that have melted into goo and whatever because they just couldn't handle the power. You don't have to worry about that with an audio control amp.
Just plug her in.
Yeah. Exactly. And, we were talking about the high level inputs. That's what we've been, discussing here. And this is really what I mean when I say that they have internal summing, or why they have that extra set of high level inputs, the front high input, we call it. And this is really where that example most of the time is going to be used. So say you have a vehicle that has a factory middler or tweeter up on the top dash, and it's got some mid bass drivers in the front doors. If you're to go grab the signal from that top dash, chances are, if you plugged it into an RTA and tested it like you should be, you would see something like that top image. You're going to see just highs only being fed to that speaker. And if you grab the signal from the front doors, you're going to see the opposite of that, which is going to be probably lows and mids only sent to that speaker. So if you were to bring those in for signal to a traditional amplifier, you're going to have to kind of pick what you get for your outputs, right? You're not going to be able to do anything with that. You would need to still buy an LC7i or a, whatever product from another manufacturer. In this case, we can just bring in that high signal and that low signal, combine them together to get full range, all inside the amplifier with no software in this case. In the case of the LC series, no software needed. Because what you have, it's circled in red on your screen right now, is a dial called front high level. And that front high level allows you to mix the high level sound or high frequencies that you're bringing in, and allows you to mix those into your signal path. So it's not just a 50-50, 50 of this signal, 50 of that combined. You actually get to dial in how much of that you want brought into the signal path. It's super, super useful, especially in those vehicles where the chimes are brought through one of those channels.
Oh.
It allows you to really mix those in, still get full range, but not have those crazy amplified front door chimes or headlight chime or door dinger, whatever you want to call it. So there's some cool stuff there. One more thing I should mention about the input section on these before we move on is not only does the high level input handle 40 volts, the low level inputs on our amps can accommodate up to about 8 to 10 volts depending on the signal. So what that means is if you are in one of those situations where the vehicle has the high level that you've tapped into is there, but it's not a real strong factory signal, you may want to actually send that into the RCA inputs instead, and our amps can handle significantly more voltage on those low level inputs than most. So again, it's all about flexibility. So moving on to the actual amplifiers themselves and products themselves, I'm not going to cover every single one for the sake of time, but a new one that we came out with here in the last few months that a lot of people are excited about, this is new for 2021, is the LC 5.1300. We've been talking about 5-channel amps for a few years now at AudioControl, and even with the pandemic and everything, we've got them out. So the LC 5.1300 is our 5-channel amp in the LC lineup. You'll notice that on top of it, it has physical dials, knobs, and controls. And this one is going to be set up like a traditional amplifier. This one's going to have your regular, gain and crossover settings and all that good stuff. But like we were just talking about, not only do we have all the power and all that good stuff, we have those great high-level inputs, 8 channels of high-level in, built-in signal summing, Accubase on the 5th channel, so you can use Accubase for that woofer. Some really cool stuff in this one. And what we really tried to do with the LC5 1300 was really kind of streamline it and simplify the signal path a little bit. For a lot of newer guys that are maybe not as used to the audio control amplifiers or products, they may look at our 6-channel amplifier and go, that's a lot of dials and switches, man. I don't know what to do with all that. We really tried to take the LC5 and simplify that. Things like, for example, if you plug a ACR1 bass knob into the LC5, it just controls channel 5 because that's what it's going to be used for 99% of the time, right? Accubase in this case just works on channel 5 because, again, that's where it's going to be used in most installs. So some things like that. We also did, even though this amp is not a DSP amplifier, we did include the crossover sections capable of doing an active 3-way setup. So if guys do want to go more than just fronts, rears, and a sub, which is fine, but very traditional, if you do want to maybe step that guy up later on when he comes back, you could use this to run a awesome front stage 3-way setup and do, maybe a tweeter, mid, and a sub, or 8s in the front doors and a mid and tweet, or however you want to configure it. It's a very flexible amp. We've even seen a few guys running one of these for the left channel and one for the right channel if you want to get crazy. So there's some really, really cool applications for these amps. We are super excited about them. We've got, I don't know, maybe 400 or so of these out in the field already, and the feedback from them is just incredible. So if you haven't had a chance to try out one of these yet or get your hands on one, get a hold of Gemsen, see if you can get one into your shop, and I guarantee you'll be blown away.
There's been a lot of buzz about this one, guys. I think you know that already, Matt. I mean, I spoke with, Dean and even Derek Wills. They have nothing but flowers for this amp. So congratulations. And for, Dave, for the Canadian market, I think this one is a home run before it even gets on the shelves.
Absolutely. I think, Matt, you were telling me that Dean from 5-Star Car Audio called you after they put this amplifier in, and they were like, dude, what did you do to this amplifier? They were that blown away.
Yeah, it was Yeah, it was an interesting experience. They called at night, after hours, and anytime you get a call after hours, you hope it's something good, but sometimes you get a call after hours, it's because somebody's in trouble or they need help, right? And so to get a call after hours and get a call after hours and have them say, "Oh my gosh, what is this thing?" They had just put it in Fernando's car, and they were just blown away. They said, not only does it sound great, yes, it's loud, but it's just so dynamic and airy, and had all these great compliments for us. So that was pretty cool.
Very, very cool. Are these in stock, Dave?
Yeah, we're shipping we've been shipping some of these a couple of weeks ago, and the next ones he's going to be talking about, we should be seeing soon. So let's get into these ones.
All right.
Yeah. So that's the D-series amplifiers. The D-series amplifiers are our DSP-based amps. If you are familiar with the LCs that we just talked about, these are essentially the same amplifiers, but with built-in DSP processors. So their physical sizes are the same. The power ratings are the same. So it makes it really, really easy when comparing. But it's a great next step for those guys that are, ready to step up a little bit and go into a DSP. And DSP is kind of a buzzword right now, right? Everybody's talking DSP. Every brand is pitching a DSP. Every shop, hopefully, is trying to get into DSP. Even if a year ago they weren't into it and they're like, you know what, we're trying to steer away from that. We don't like software. We don't like that stuff. Eventually they're going to have to. And if you are one of those shops watching this that you've never done DSP, try one of these, because it's a really easy way to dip your toes without having to do a bunch of extra work and get crazy. So with that, let's dip into a little bit of what makes the D-series, special and different. And if it's not clear already, I'll mention it now. The D-series amplifiers are going to include everything that's in an LC amp. So if you liked what you saw with the LC amplifiers, just remember, everything you just saw with that is also built into these, as well as more. Now, when you look at these amplifiers, the first thing you might notice physically is on the top plate of them, there's no switches, there's no dials, there's no controls. It's just some LEDs for setup and helping you to maximize performance, etc. But that's about it. There's no switches on them because it's all going to be done through software. So, yep, through software, which I know is scary for some guys, but what we do is we use something called DM Smart DSP. This is our app that runs the software for these D-series amps. It runs all of our products that start with the letter D. So it's one app for all of our DSP products, whether it's a DSP amplifier or a standalone DSP, they all use DM Smart DSP. So as a shop, you can put one app on your tablet or laptop and you're pretty much good to go. Now, what's really cool about this too is that we really try to be kind of brand agnostic when it comes to software. So if you're curious if this will run on your platform of choice, it will. It runs on Mac, PC, it runs on Apple iPads, it runs on Android tablets, it'll run on an iPhone, it'll run on an Android phone. The only thing it won't run on is like a Windows phone, a Palm Pilot, maybe a BlackBerry from 10 years ago. It's not going to work on those. But if you have exactly, right?
Chromebook.
Man, you would be surprised maybe some of the calls I get from guys like, hey, I have this old Palm Trio. Will it run on here? Like, come on, man, give me a break. Dave brings up a good point, though, with the Chromebook. Chromebooks do not run true Windows OS. They run Chrome OS. So if you're thinking about picking up a $200 laptop to run this software, that's fine if it's $200, but just make sure it runs Windows, not Chrome OS. So I'm glad you mentioned that, Dave. So with our DM Smart DSP, we really have tried to make this really, really simple. And I'm going to show you some screenshots of just how easy it is. I think every DSP manufacturer probably kind of says that theirs is simple or tries to, show that it's simple. But with us, I think we've really hit a home run in that the software really is easy. I mean, even consumers that have no experience can usually fiddle their way through this and fumble around and make it work. There's a picture on your screen of a person programming the DSP board, and I think that's important to bring up. These amplifiers, every one of them that goes out the door, we actually program that DSP board by hand in the factory and install it in that amplifier before it goes out the door. So if you get any sort of a D4800, D6.1200, or the new D5.1300, that product was assembled, tested, and listened to in Seattle by AudioControl before it went out the door, which I think is pretty cool. I think that's pretty special. So let's look at the software itself. this is the input view of DM Smart DSP. And this is one of those features that makes us even that much easier when it comes to OEM integration, and that is that it has a built-in RTA. What you're seeing right now is basically an RTA screen. When you hook up signals to the input side of a D series product, you can actually see what that signal is. So if you're a shop that doesn't have an RTA, you don't have an O-scope, you don't have all those tools that maybe you know you should have, but you just haven't invested in them yet, you can not get away with, but you can do a lot better using a D series product and being able to at least have a visual on that stuff rather than guessing. Because I think what a lot of guys don't want to admit is that they are guessing. They're doing a lot of guessing. You know, they're putting their ear up to a rear speaker and they're hoping it's full range. Exactly. You know, and that's not real car audio, guys. That's not the real deal.
I was at a dealer, not too long ago, and he was trying to figure out some wires. I said, how do you know this is full range? Oh, I can put my ear up and listen to it, which is, and we're talking a Bentley. You know what I mean? This is not a Honda Civic that he was working on. So that was scary and a bit of an eye opener for sure.
Yeah.
Sorry, my question for you. This is the same interface for anything DSP audio control, yeah?
Correct.
All right.
You know what I love about this?
So yeah.
My apologies, Matt. Go ahead.
No, please.
What I love about the slide is, just going back a little bit, reminiscing, is everybody that's ever done some sort of crank it up contest, SPL contest or whatever, all lugged around an audio control RTA, SA 3052 or something like that. So, these guys basically originated that whole RTA thing, and to see them take those years of experience that they have and integrate it right into an amplifier is phenomenal. It's absolutely cool. Sorry about that, Matt.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's a great point, and that's exactly what we've done. We've taken our RTA technology from the SA3052 or the new DM RTA that we'll get to later, and we've integrated that into our DM RTA or our DM Smart DSP software, so that when you do tap into that signal in that Bentley and you're not sure if it's full range or high pass or low pass, you can take a quick glance, play some pink noise, and in 2 seconds know what you're dealing with. And that's really what it's all about to me, is knowing what you're dealing with, because then you can take the steps to make it sound good. If you don't know if your signal is full range or not, it makes it really, really hard to predict what the output's going to be like. And to me, that's one of the most important things these days in car audio, is we need to produce predictable results. Predictable results will not only make the car sound better, but it's going to help you to get the job done faster with the right parts and have happy return customers, because unpredictable results are where we get caught at 5:30 p.m. on a Friday with a car that doesn't sound good, and we end up having to figure it out at the last minute. If you could deal with predictable results, it's going to be a much smoother day and smoother install and a better experience for your customer too. So I think that's really what this is all about. Without diving into every single feature of this, something that's easy to understand, and even just from these screenshots, is that the software is organized into 3 tabs. This is the first of those 3 tabs. So this is all about your input. You can see what that input looks like on the RTA. You can adjust the level of that input via the input gain. And then you can move on to the output view, which is the next one we're going to look at. The output view is, again, the middle tab. And this is going to give you all of your output section. So you can click on the channels up at the very top where it says output channels. Right now we're looking at outputs 1-2. So the 2 front channels, let's say. And from here, it's really pretty simple. Even if you're not, like I said, even if you're not a pro, even if you're a consumer, most guys can look at this and go, okay, well, there's my output. There's the crossover. The crossover is super simple. You just drag the slider to where you want it. High pass, low pass, band pass, doesn't matter. You can make anything you want. You can make any filter style that you can dream up. It's really easy to do your time correction if you want to do time alignment. We don't require you to do any math, because we know how that goes. You ask guys in the shop to do a bunch of math, most of them won't do it. So with us, all you have to do is measure from the driver's headrest to each channel, plug in those inches, and it'll do the rest. It's a piece of cake. One of my favorite parts is that there is Accubase built into the software as well. So if you're used to having AccuBass in an LC2I, that's what most of you are probably familiar with. AccuBass in an LC2I is the same as AccuBass in an LC amplifier or AccuBass in a DSP amplifier. The difference with the DSP amps is you can apply AccuBass to every channel or any channel if you want to. So it doesn't have to just be for subs. You could use AccuBass to fatten up the bottom end on those front 6x9s if you wanted to. You know, whatever you want to do with it, you can in the software. The other thing that I think is really neat is down at the bottom, that is your EQ, obviously. But what's really cool that I can't show you with a screenshot is that the RTA actually ghosts over the EQ. So as you're making changes to the EQ, you can actually see the change behind it with the RTA at the same time. So every time you drag a slider in real time, you'll see the change with the RTA. It's really, really helpful for managing that signal. So if you are doing some summing and you're trying to get it to fairly flat, this makes it really quick and simple to do, even if you're not an expert at DSP.
Matthew, as far as putting in data, you mentioned distance, right? Headrest to speaker. Is there any microphone involved in this system?
Nope. You can just with this one, you just put in the inches, you know, just measuring with a tape measure. You can change the unit of measurement. So if you prefer centimeters or you want to do it in milliseconds, maybe you've already calculated it for some reason, you could put it in that way. But there's no microphone involved with this, none needed. We're just dealing with the electrical signal, nothing acoustic. Correct.
Okay.
The most complex tool you need is a tape measure.
Exactly. Absolutely. Yep.
I would use a piece of string.
And a tape measure.
I would do string.
Oh, that's that works too.
Yeah.
One of the other cool things that I'll mention in here before we move on is in the middle section there where it says, or I guess it's more off to the left, it says output summing. People get really confused and overwhelmed with summing. Well, how do I sum? How much of each channel do I need? What do I do with that? With ours, where it says output summing, the easiest way to think of this is where do you want the signal to come from for these channel outputs? So if we're looking at outputs 1 and 2 right now, do I want my input for these channels to come from inputs 1 and 2, or do I want it to come from, you know, 1, 2, and 5 and 6, and I need to sum those together? All you have to do is click the channels you want, and we've now selected those or summed them. It makes it really, really simple. You can select things like which channels are controlled by the ACR3 dash control knob. So if you want to put in, you know, what most people call a bass knob, but use it as a master volume, you can do that. It's really simple to do. So there's a lot of cool options in here. We also do have an auto EQ feature. So again, we're talking OEM integration today. Let's be more specific. If you're working on one of these newer vehicles that has a factory EQ curve, and if you didn't know this, most of them do, okay? Even your base model like Nissan Versa has a factory EQ curve. You know, even though that car came with some basic speakers and a basic radio, they're still applying an EQ curve to try to make it sound good. Well, when you feed that into our DSP, not only are you going to be able to see that curve with the RTA, if you don't want to sit there and drag sliders to try to flatten that out, you can literally click auto and wait about 10 seconds while playing pink noise, and it will attempt to flatten that for you and compensate for you. It's really pretty slick, and it works really, really well. You know, is it as accurate as a professional DSP tuner and his RTA? No, but for 99% of the jobs that guys are doing in the shop and what I call production work, it's going to be more than adequate. So the last thing I want to mention in the DM Smart DSP menus and software is the dashboard view. The dashboard view is the last tab. It's the one on the right-hand side at the top there. And this is where we can see what our signal looks like coming in and now what it looks like going out. So again, all of your changes that you make happen in real time, and you can see them in real time right there in the software. This is also where we can see all of our presets and things like that. So you have 4 DSP presets in here. So if you're working on a vehicle that from the factory has maybe phone call audio on certain channels and we want to EQ for those channels, or we want to do a single seat tune for time correction and we want to do a 2-seat tune or something like that, you can save all of that with the presets up at the top. You can even have one preset where the dash control knob is master volume and another preset where the dash control knob is a sub controller. So you can actually do both with one knob and the software. So again, just trying to make things as simple as we can. Anybody that's used this software will generally tell you it really is that easy. So again, if you're one of the shops out there scared of DSP, you've never done it before, order yourself a D4.800, load up this software and give it a shot. And if you need help, the good news is AudioControl will help you. We can walk you through that software. We can even live remote into your computer if we need to, and help get you online if that's what it takes. So we're really pretty willing to get people up and running and do what we can to help.
That's a neat feature, live remote into the computer for the software.
Yeah,
Nice.
it's something that, obviously we don't want to have to do with every install, but usually, if it's a new dealer and they're having trouble getting on, we're not just going to throw you to the wolves and let you, struggle with it. We'll certainly do what we can to get you up and running. Sometimes it's, that their computer is 10 years old and they haven't done any updates in a while. Sometimes whatever happens. I dealt with a guy the other day who had a broken USB port on his computer. Stuff happens, but I was able to get him online. We were able to get him connected to the DSP, and he was able to get that job done and out the door that day. Again, happy customer, predictable results, all that good stuff. So with the DM Smart DSP software and D-Series amplifiers, here's the one a lot of people have been waiting for, the D5.1300. So this is another new product that we have just recently released. This started shipping just a few days ago. So these are super, super fresh. This is our 1300 watt RMS 5-channel amplifier. So you can see the specs there on your screen. And of course, with that DSP software built in, you literally have pretty much unlimited options as far as which channels are high passed, band passed, low passed, which channels have AccuBass being used. You can do anything you want with it. We talked earlier about the upgrade path and being able to, build on these systems later. Dave and I were talking a little bit before we started today about, getting bitten by the bug and wanting to upgrade and upgrade. This amplifier is the ultimate upgrade amp for guys doing 5 channels. If you sell a lot of 5-channel amps in your store, this would be a great one to have, because not only can you put in a awesome sounding 1300 watt 5-channel amp today, doing maybe, traditional stuff, components in the front, coaxes in the back, and a single 10. Okay, great. It's going to sound awesome. And you can DSP it and time correct it and make that thing sound really good for that guy today. And then when he comes back in 6 weeks and wants to step it up, these have an RCA output. The RCA output is, again, not a pre-out. It is not a pass-through. It's a DSP-able RCA output. So it's actually an additional DSP output. So if you are putting one of these in and then the guy comes back and wants to add a bigger sub-amp or add a 2-channel because he wants to go active on those front components, or add a 3-inch to the dash and go 3-way in the front, this has the outputs to not only add that amplifier, but DSP that amplifier. So it doesn't have to buy another DSP amp. You just buy a regular 2-channel and still have full control over it. If you are plugging in a bigger sub-amp to those RCA outs, you could also set up the dash control knob to control the level of that external sub-amp. So even if they buy a sub-amp that has no dash bass knob or level controller, you could still control it from here, which is pretty slick. We were talking earlier about guys that don't have all the tools. They don't have the oscilloscope. They don't have the RTA in their shop. We mentioned that this has the RTA built in, but it also has some other cool features built in that make it easier for those consumers or shops that don't have all the right tools. Things like maximized indicators. Those are going to help you to set up the output side of the amplifier to get the most out of it without distortion. We have our maximized input indicators that are going to, again, help you to make sure that we are not overdriving those inputs and creating distortion. We have a maximum input level control light, which helps you to avoid clipping from the source unit. There's some really cool features built into this that really kind of take a lot of the guesswork out of that stuff. Now, not to be confused, if a shop has an O-scope, definitely trust your scope, right? I mean, these are like dummy lights on a car. They're great as a resource, but they're not your be-all, end-all thing to stand by. But they're super, super useful for those guys that just don't have all the right tools. So moving on from the D5.1300, like I said, that one just started shipping. Gemsen should start seeing those here pretty soon. Along the lines of OEM integration, what's one of the things that guys do the most when integrating with factory systems? Add bass, right? I mean, that's the first thing most people come in for. When they say their car doesn't sound good, 90% of the time, they just mean it doesn't have any bass. The mids and highs actually might be okay, especially in a lot of newer vehicles. As much as I hate to admit it, a lot of these new cars actually don't sound bad, but they don't have the bass that all of us are used to. And so what do we do to add bass to those? We're usually selling them an LC2I, hopefully, or we're putting in a, God forbid, a basic high to low converter, and then we are adding a sub amp. If you use AudioControl products, you don't have to do any of that. All of our sub amps, from the ACM, our basic micro 300 watt sub amp, all the way up to our LC1 1500, all have an LC2I inside of them. For any of you dealers out there who have done the LC2I, most of you probably at least seen one or put one in. The ACM 1.300 is only about 2 inches longer than an LC2I, and it's got 300 watts RMS built inside of it, right? So if you're already going to put in an LC2I, just picture it's this much longer, and now you've got an amp too. That's pretty sweet. Again, when it's 4:30 on a Friday afternoon, and a guy rolls into your shop wanting a sub package for the weekend, you can get him done with an ACM 1.300. And all you've got to do is feed that thing power and ground, feed some signal into it, and away you go. Another feature that all of our amplifiers have that goes along with this whole topic of OEM integration is GTO. GTO is our great turn-on circuit. It's what we use to basically do auto turn-on. And like in that case, if you're just adding a bass package and you're just going to drop in a quick sub amp, let the amp turn itself on using signal sensing, and away you go. You've still got an LC2I built in there. You've still got AccuBass built into all three of these amplifiers. So it is truly an LC2I inside. It's not just the input section of an LC2I. It is an LC2I inside. We almost need the little Intel inside logo that says LC2I or something instead. But that's literally what's inside these, you guys. So when you're looking at these amplifiers, it's comical almost. I'll see sometimes an LC1800 with an LC2I installed right next to it. I'm like, really? Why? That one's inside of that one. But anyway, so that's really what's up with the sub side of it. If you're adding bass and you're just looking for amplifiers that make your life easier, these are a great way to do that. So we've talked about LC amps. We've talked about D-series amps. Now I've even mentioned the ACM amplifiers. I also wanted to chat a little bit about some of the other products that we brought out in the last year or so. A lot of these have a lot to do with OEM integration, of course. One of those is the DMRTA. Now, the DMRTA itself did not come out in the last year, but we did start shipping the DMRTA Pro Kit about a year ago. The Pro Kit, for those of you that haven't bought a DMRTA yet, is the ultimate way to go. This has everything that you need all in one kit. So if you weren't sure and you've been looking at the DMRTA and you're like, oh, which microphone do I need? Which pieces do I need? Just pick up the Pro Kit, and the Pro Kit is going to come with everything you see on the screen there. It comes with the tool itself. It comes with the nice blue Pelican style case and all of the goodies involved. And of course, you can find out all the details on our website, AudioControl.com. For those of you that aren't familiar with the DMRTA or what that even is, if you are doing OEM integration, if you're a shop that handles any sort of vehicle with a factory radio, you should have a DMRTA. Unless you already have an RTA on your bench and an O-scope, okay, you get a pass. But for the majority of you out there, this is the tool that you really need. This is your oscilloscope, your RTA, your voltage meter, your polarity checker, your SPL meter, all in one tool. No more popping speakers with 9-volt batteries, okay? You can do it legit with this. If you see some speaker wires hanging in the trunk of a car going to a rear deck speaker, and you're going to tap into those for signal and you don't know which one's positive and negative, you could even use the polarity checker to find out which wire is positive and which wire is negative. There is some incredible things you can do with this tool. I could do and have done a full hour on just the DMRTA. We don't have time for that today, but I did want to bring it up and mention it. It is an incredible tool for those of you that aren't familiar with it or don't have one yet. Pick one of these up. It'll change the way you do integration. That's for sure.
Matthew, I want to give you a time check. You've got 5 minutes left.
Cool. Sounds good. So let's move on to a couple other things that we have, brought out and released in the last year or so. And I just want to touch really quick on the LGDs. Again, these are not necessarily the newest thing out there, but I think if we're going to talk OEM integration, we have to talk LGDs for a second. Any of you that have ever ran into a vehicle that would not put out sound once you interrupted the speaker leads or once you tied in for high level input, it's because that factory radio wanted to see an impedance load. And that's what these really do. So this sheet is actually available on our website and on our Facebook page if anybody wants to download this quick reference guide. But we have LGDs, which are load generating devices, to fix those cars, to make those new Chrysler vehicles put out sound even when they don't want to. These will take care of that. So we're gonna hustle through this so that we get there. The last couple of things we want to chat about: the LC1i and 2i Pro. The LC2i has been an industry leading two-channel active high-to-low converter for years now. It's really become the industry standard, and that doesn't mean that it can't be improved upon, though. So we brought out the 2i Pro. We took everything that was great about the 2i and made it better. It's slimmer, it's sleeker, it still handles all that input voltage, it still has AccuBase, but the AccuBase is easier to set up. It comes with a dash control knob in the box. You don't have to buy it separately. And you know those 3 LGDs I just showed you a second ago? Those are all built inside. That's the key. All of that stuff is in there. So no more worrying about which LGD to stock. Stock the 2i Pro and just flip a switch to the one that you need.
The LGD is inside the LC2 and LC2i?
LC2 Pro and the LC1.
Correct. Yep. And the LC1i, real quick on that one, that has the LGDs built in. It is our entry-level high-to-low adapter from, or not high-to-low adapter, but active LOC from AudioControl. And what it doesn't have, the 1i does not do AccuBase, and it does not have a dash control knob. However, it is a line driver. So if you put it in today for a base package, customer comes back in 6 months and buys a double DIN, no need to take it out. Leave it in the system, run line level through it, and it'll bump up your line voltage to up to 9.5 volts if you want it to. So it's a great step between those $40 LOCs and an LC2i. This is a perfect step between. Last thing I'll mention, then we'll wrap up, the ACX line. If you didn't know AudioControl does all-weather, we do. We have the ACX 300.4 and the 300.1. These are our all-weather amplifiers, not just marine, but side-by-sides, jet skis, boats, hot air balloons, Jeeps, whatever you got, these will work. The ACX BT1 is our Bluetooth streamer. It is aptX HD capable. It is fully universal. Take any amplifier and make it into a Bluetooth amplifier. The ACX BT1 can do that. And the unique thing about the BT1 is that it has a remote turn-on output. So once you start playing music, the BT1 will turn on your amplifiers for you. Really, really cool stuff. The Matrix Plus was also updated this year. I'll skip through this one quickly. We reduced its size by 30%. We conformally coated the board so that now it can handle lots of vibration and some, splash and marine air, that sort of thing, a little bit of moisture. Same price, same SKU, same features, but now it's small enough to where you can fit it inside the dashboard on top of a single DIN chassis big screen radio. The Matrix Plus fits right on top of those and can provide you, again, up to like 13 volts of line voltage if you have a bunch of amplifiers or just want to line drive the amps you have. Those guys running these SPL systems with 10 sub-amplifiers, they need a Matrix Plus. The Matrix is a pretty incredible piece. Been around for a while, but we refreshed it this year. So thank you guys so much for your time. I appreciate you sticking with me, and I'm sure I ran a few minutes over, so I apologize.
You did not. You were perfectly dead on time, like a professional should
Awesome.
be. Want
Awesome.
to repeat? Actually, no. I have 1 minute to bring in some questions. Actually, I
Yeah,
wrote
let's
down
do
what system summing is, but you actually already went there. Yes, the high level output for the 40 volts. Let's go back to that. I want to just clarify. So what you were saying is that the multi-channel amplifiers, whether it's with built-in DSP or without built-in DSP, they can take a wide range of voltage from an amplified or non-amplified signal from the original system. I just wanted to make clear, because I said something back there that I said basically I can't blow it up. I just want to be I'm not encouraging people to try to blow it up. I'm just trying to reinforce that AudioControl has built it in such a way that based on the specs of original equipment from the dealer, from the manufacturer, there should not be a more than that type of voltage that it can't handle through a speaker wire. That's
exactly. Yeah, I mean, even those systems that have a factory woofer, that's usually where this issue comes up, is the vehicle, let's say a Lincoln Navigator, has a factory sub in the back. They take that woofer out, and they want to use those speaker wires for signal into their new subsystem, their aftermarket amp and sub. And so they take that, and they feed it into a $20 LOC, and that factory amp's putting out 100 watts, and it melts that LOC.
It's going to start smelling funny.
Our products can take that. Yeah, our products can take that voltage and more, no issues whatsoever.
Now, you mentioned a word throughout this entire presentation as a key feature, especially in the new DSP built-in amplifiers, and that was
AccuBase.
AccuBase. Funny thing about AccuBase, Dave, why don't you tell us about AccuBase?
Well, before I get into AccuBase, I just want to hammer on the fact that it's such a unique feature. In fact, I think you guys got a patent for it, what was it, 2 years ago or something like that. So this isn't just an EQ. This is a real, like, intelligent circuit that works very well and nobody else has. And going back to that LC2I, that Matt was talking about, that is, the best LOC to ever be put out there. The LC2I Pro is really, really, really doing a good job in terms of replacing it, because you get that extra bass control knob and the load level adapters. To summarize, though, all I want to say is, these guys offer tremendous support. There's a lot of speaker amplifier brands, processor brands that are out there. If you pay attention to the forums, you'll see Matt, you'll see Chris. These guys are there to help and walk you through. And sometimes it's the wee hours of the morning. So, the support side of things is super important. We can also set up for anybody that's a little bit confused on some of the stuff that we talked about, separate one-on-one Zap conference calls where Matthew or somebody from AudioControl gets involved when we do a one-on-one walkthrough on the different products. So, these are all really super exciting things. Going back to Accubase, though, let's talk about that. Keyword, we're doing some prizes and some giveaways, as well as a discount. I'm not sure if you've seen some of the previous sessions, but if you go to the Gemsen website, you can log in. If you're a dealer, to shop.gemsen.com, use a promo code CMAIW5 during the checkout process. You'll save 5% off of any size order, big, small, doesn't matter what the products are. Obviously, we want it to be AudioControl, single use, and expires April 3rd. And we obviously want to encourage everybody to watch and win. Learning is knowledge. And the keyword Accubase, if you submit that using the link on the website, we will put you into one of our drawings for the prizes we're giving away at the end of the month. If you do it before April 5th, you're going to get double the amount of entries. So keyword Accubase. Matt, I want to thank you so much, man. You crammed a lot of information in here in a short period of time, and I know we could have went hours.
I'll tell you.
Absolutely. Those.
I was just going to say, and this is going to compliment. I'm going to leave Matt last word, but I want to say, Matt dropped a lot of big words in that presentation, and I don't want dealers to think, oh my God, I need a new dictionary for all this. But like Dave is mentioning, set up that appointment. Let's go through, because really they're big words, but AudioControl's kind of made it. I don't know what the word is for here. They've really simplified it, and I've gone through a lot of trainings, guys, DSP trainings especially. This one is in the top 10 percentile of easiest. Just putting it out there.
Awesome.
So, any last words, Matt, before I let you go?
No, I appreciate Dave bringing up the ZAP trainings. That's something I didn't touch on. And ZAP stands for Zoom Audio Control Presentation. And so like Dave mentioned, if you saw some stuff here today, maybe you're not a dealer now, but you'd like to be, you want to learn more about the whole line, or we can even focus on just the DMRTA for an hour, or whatever you guys want to do. Get a hold of Dave. He'll set it up with me, and we'll get you trained. So that's what we're all about.
Thanks a lot, Matt. We'll see you soon.
Thanks,
My
Matt.
pleasure. Thanks so much, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Take care now. You see that 5-channel DSP built in?
I know a good spot that would fit.
I'm just saying that's a nice piece. That's all I'm saying. That is a nice piece, well done. And audio, he didn't talk too much about it, but in the theme of Power Sports Marine, their weatherproof series is pretty hardcore. We featured it back when we did a connected, but
they're not
really nice piece.
They're not gutless small amplifiers, which sometimes is a challenge.
Yeah, no, these things pack punch. Dave, that's it for this one. I'll see you on the next one.
See you in a bit.
There you have it. AudioControl. A little dropping some knowledge on some OEM integration. Thank you, Matthew Palumbo, for joining us from AudioControl. That wraps it up for this session. Continuing live coverage from day 6 of CMA Industry Week. I'm your host, Ben Wu. Until next time, we connect.